English translation. 433rd contact. Thursday, 17th August 2006, 17:02 hours.
Ah, you are already here, Ptah. My greetings there too, and be welcome. Had to go outside to check on things for a preliminary work on the well, where we have to do some repairs. In order to finish everything, a formwork has to be put up, so that we can do some concreting work next Wednesday. Some instructions still had to be given. Have you been here long?
Greetings, Edward, dear friend. For my part, I have just come and saw you go into the house. For my part, however, yesterday, through a foresight which I took for certain reasons, I watched you carry out the concreting next Wednesday. It was interesting to watch you working, especially how you have brought or will bring the concrete to the finish. I'm sure that is an idea on your part, if I'm not mistaken.
You are not wrong, my friend. Ideas are needed to ease the hard work. But what is so important that you are back here after only 2 days? Is it related to your foresight?
Yes, I know your ideas that are helpful and make the work easier. But listen to what I came here for. It is actually regarding the foresight. There is a special upcoming event in the days ahead that you will be interested in. The reason why I found out about it is because future broadcasts of news from European television stations have brought to our attention the fact that in a few days' time they will be reporting that a girl called Natasha Kampusch, who was kidnapped in Austria 8 years ago and who has been held prisoner all this time, may escape, after which the kidnapper will commit suicide by jumping in front of an approaching train.
Well, what can I say except that, on the one hand, it is unfortunate in terms of what happened to the kidnapper then, but that it is gratifying in terms of what's happening now. But do you know some details of the captivity?
A statement on your part is also not necessary, for you are only to be informed about it. I can tell you a lot about the details of the imprisonment regarding what happened between the girl and the kidnapper, but you must keep silent about it, because otherwise, if you speak openly about it, the whole thing will worsen for the mental state of the now young woman, who is now 18 years old and will need a lot of time to be able to deal properly with everything that has happened during the 8 years of imprisonment and what will result from her escape and from the suicide of the kidnapper. Of course, I have learned a lot from the time of captivity, so I can tell you a lot about it. As I have already explained to you, however, it is necessary that you keep silent about this, because at least for the time being, it will not be good for the young woman if certain things become known openly about which she is initially not yet able to speak. The relationship between her and the kidnapper, which has been built up over 8 years, alone poses great problems for her.
Good. So once again, silence is in order. Then something else. We have now formed a group of editors who met for the first time last Sunday. In the future, this team of editors will take a lot of work off my hands, at least the editorial part of the Wasserman magazine. What will happen with the bulletins and special bulletins, time will tell.
That is very good, because it will relieve you and you will find more time for other work.
Yes, I also think so. When I think of all the work you keep bringing me, I can spend more time on it. Besides, I can finally devote myself to the kitchen conversations that have been going on for more than 20 years, and execute and write them down in all accuracy. So I have decided that I will no longer deal with book writing in the usual sense, but that I will put together some books based on the questions and answers from the kitchen conversations. At the moment, however, I have a new book in the computer that I have to finish first. It is a book with 4 titles and different topics: teaching the basic concept of life, reflection, people of the earth, and things to know.
But there are also all the other works you have to do, and they are not few.
But I can handle that, and I do not have any problems. And besides, My day or my working hours are 15 to 17 hours, depending on the day. During this time, a lot of things come together, in addition to the paperwork on the computer. But the core group members also work a lot for the mission, and that should never be forgotten. Without their tireless help, I would be fully stranded.
That is correct. It was their loyal cooperation that made it possible for the mission to flourish to the extent that it is now and bears good fruit, seen worldwide.
Yeah, you can say that out loud. But tell me, Ptah, do you know anything about the fact that NASA has been missing its moon landing video for a year now and is desperately looking for it?
The story's familiar to me.
And why have you not pointed this out to me, my friend?
Because we did not attach any value to the matter and did not bother to check whether everything was true or not. We know about the truth that the story about the first moon landing is a tremendous hoax, and that is enough for us, so we do not have to worry about it any further.
It is that simple for you. But the human beings of the Earth are already interested in what is behind it. Look here, I have an article from the Tages-Anzeiger of Wednesday, the 16th of August. Here, you can read it.
Thank you.
Ptah reads the article.
There is much to be said for that.
NASA searches for its moon landing video for over a year. NASA desperately hunted for the original footage of the first moon landing. Without success. By Benno Schmidt.
The picture is history, 20th July 1969. Astronaut Neil Armstrong is the first human being to set foot on the moon. He utters his legendary phrase about a small step for human beings being a giant leap for humankind. Down on the Earth, 500 million people watch him excitedly on TV. The images of the man on the moon had previously been transmitted through space to receiver stations in California and Australia. From there, they were broadcast all over the world via Houston. Later, the original tapes from the receiver stations went into the archives. But which archive? For some time now, the US space agency NASA has been searching for the original video of the first moon landing. Yesterday, spokesman Gray Hortoloma admitted, "We haven't seen the tapes for quite a while. We've been looking for them for over a year, and they haven't turned up." The background to the search. NASA hoped to preserve the tapes in better quality for posterity. The problem: the playback devices of yesteryear are not compatible with today's TV technology. NASA therefore planned to play the tapes again on the old equipment and record the images more sharply and clearly with modern cameras. But nothing will come of it now.
Moon landing, original pictures missing.
One thing is certain. The tapes were initially stored in the Washington National Archives. At the end of the 1970s, they were returned to NASA. Then the trail was lost. A total of 700 boxes are missing. The process is piquant. For decades, conspiracy theorists have been spinning numerous rumors about the first moon landing. The core of their claims: the event did not take place. Rather, it was staged in a film studio. The Swiss physicist Johannes Geiss witnessed the 1969 moon landing live in the NASA Control Center in Houston. Geiss was head of the Physics Institute at the University of Bern and responsible for a Swiss experiment as part of the mission. After the return of the lunar astronauts, Geiss received slides containing, among other things, lunar dust. But could the samples have not come from lunar meteorites? Before the moon landing, no such meteorites had been found on the Earth, says Geiss. This is also why he thinks doubts about the authenticity of the moon landing pictures are absurd. NASA has not yet given up hope that the original tapes will eventually turn up. However, spokesman Hautaloma fears that the tapes would then no longer be playable. The old magnetic tapes could have been destroyed by now. Humanity would have to continue living with blurred, flickering copies. Tagesanzeiger, Zürich, Wednesday, 16th August 2006.
The whole thing fits exactly into the concept of the moon landing lie, and if it is written here that the Swiss physicist Johannes Geiss, at that time head of the Physics Institute of the University of Bern, had witnessed the moon landing in 1969 live in the NASA Control Center, Houston, then he has been deceived and hoodwinked, as you always say, as well as all the others who were present in the control center. And the slides that Geiss received at that time, that is clear, were prepared with lunar meteorites that had been ground to dust, etc., because the claim that NASA had not possessed any lunar material until then is just as much a fraudulent lie as the fraud of the alleged first moon landing. And the alleged problem described here, that the playback devices of yesteryear are not compatible with today's TV technology, is more than just ridiculous, as is the claim that the old magnetic tapes can no longer be played because they are destroyed. The possibility that old magnetic tapes from 1969 are still intact and can still be played back and transferred to new carriers is still possible. But what is not allowed to happen is not allowed to happen, because the original recordings of the moon landing scam of 1969 clearly show the fraudulent practices of that time. The many mistakes made by the filmmakers responsible for the lunar landing scam at that time must of course not reach the general public, so that the latter must be satisfied with defective, blurred and flickering copies from which the most significant fraudulent errors have already been removed before everything was broadcast worldwide by TV stations. Nevertheless, enough errors remained, which were analyzed and denounced by attentive observers and researchers.
For my part, I find it very strange that 700 boxes of valuable material are said to have disappeared, especially in the USA, which is particularly fussy about such things, and has security measures in place for every piece of dirt that not even a mouse can steal a piece of cheese. So I could imagine that NASA and various others, maybe even certain people from the government and the army, have only staged or invented the whole story about the lost moon landing video to avoid the years of pressure from the public, who have long been demanding open clarity and evidence. If NASA can no longer show an original video, then this organization and all its players can pull out of the affair and claim that due to the loss of the original moon landing video, the authenticity of the first moon landing at that time can unfortunately no longer be proven. If, contrary to expectations, the aforementioned video should suddenly appear out of nowhere, then it can be assumed with absolute certainty that it is not the original, but an already manipulated version in which all cheating mistakes have perhaps already been ironed out. The best way for NASA and its followers would be that the allegedly disappeared material does not show up at all. And if this Swiss physicist Johannes Geiss is of the opinion that he witnessed an effective moon landing at the Houston Control Center, then he was deceived by those responsible just like all the others who were fooled by the fraudulent machinations at the control center, as well as the whole U.S. American people and the whole world, including the persons responsible for the whole production at that time and the hypnotized astronauts who had their alleged moon landing post hypnotically implanted and were drugged by a special brainwashing, and who were and still are of the opinion, should some of them still be alive, that their hypnotic experiences are real and true.
But the outrageous lie and deception of the alleged moon landing at that time will continue to exist, because a large part of the humans on Earth cannot be taught the truth, especially not those who have academic titles and who call themselves scholars, journalists, or people responsible for the deception.
I do not think that is a question. But tell me, have you discovered anything new about the fact that such strange things happen to us in the center? Such as things which disappear without a trace, without having someone visible taking them away? A few days ago, Eva put 2 photographic slides on the box for me, and without anyone being able to take them away from us, they simply vanished without a trace, as did the book, at that time which was placed in the bookshelf. As we both saw on the recordings, just suddenly, from one moment to the next, disappeared without a trace, never to reappear, as have many other things too. Also, it is indeed inexplicable that Guido's alarm clock regularly runs backwards if he has it here in the center, but normally runs forwards when he has it at home again. And now, the same phenomenon also occurred with a second alarm clock, which he brought with him. Also, there is the matter of when I write something on the computer, and then later something completely different is expressed, and it often has the opposite of that which I have written, or that entire paragraphs or individual words disappear or are altered, which is just as strange as many other occurrences which go along the same lines, and have already often created irritation. And this has been going on for years, and it looks as if any number of goblins, were such to exist, want to drive us mad.
This is certainly not the case because goblins are mythical creatures which have never existed, as you have immediately corrected your remark. We cannot explain all these incidents either. However, I have a suspicion that any number of human entities from another dimension are making mischief, perhaps out of the terrestrial future, whereby a justification for that, however, appears to be extremely puzzling. But it is also possible that, at the actual present time, secret terrestrial laboratories exist, about which we have no inkling and we cannot find out anything about them, because they are shielded against any electromagnetic swinging waves from inwards to outwards, and from outwards to inwards, such that even our possibilities for finding out and analyzing fail. This is absolutely in the framework of what is possible, because even though we possess an advanced level of technological development, this is geared in a particular form, as is the case with every humanity. Therefore, it is possible that, on the Earth, technological trends, and so forth, are pursued which are even more advanced than our capabilities, such as, for example, that electromagnetic teleportation swinging waves are generated, which initially manifest themselves in the area of their goal and then also disappear again without a trace, without allowing their origin to be determined, because no coordinates whatsoever or other traces are able to be pursued and are therefore not verifiable. In that regard, very advanced technologies are also quite possible. Therefore, also for humanities which have not yet reached our technical state, because, as mentioned, it is significant to research the direction in which progress is being made in inventions and developments. Also on the Earth, all kinds of things are made in secret laboratories belonging to the scientists and the military as well as the secret services, and so forth, about which the public has not the slightest inkling, often not even the mighty and the mightiest of the governments. So, as a rule, cognitions, research results and inventions and so forth only come to the public through the multifaceted media, and even then is censored, only when everything is already outdated and replaced again by the latest achievements, which are naturally kept secret. But now to again return to the problem of the disappearance of different things in the center. Should human beings of the Earth's future be in on the act, which more likely to be excluded, nonetheless is still not completely ruled out, then the grounds for the whole thing could rest in the fact that, in the future, your mission will conflict with certain things in a group's plans, for which reason they are trying to hinder or falsify certain things in the center, in their past, which is your present time. Anyway, that corresponds to the whole thing, which would cause all these events in the center, representing a technology, which, although not unknown, is still not available to us, in the manner that we could apply it without hesitation, because we are only at the advanced beginnings of our exploration of this, not, however, that we are already able to develop this for application. With all the incidents that we have inspected in the center in relation to these things, we could quite plainly detect high electromagnetic energy which simply just suddenly made its appearance without us being able to identify a trace of its transportation to the spot or its approach. The energies were simply suddenly there, coming out of nothingness, and they disappeared again in this same manner, without it being possible for us to detect any traces nor attain coordinates. A further possibility, however, as previously mentioned, is that current terrestrial energies and powers are in play which are engendered in secret laboratories and are being tested. And, indeed, where better can such inventions be tested than in the center, whose residents and staff are, for many Earth humans, taken to be eccentrics, dreamers, and crackpots? Were you, as the contactee to us extraterrestrials, and the residents of the center and core group members, to go to the general public with the strange experiences of the unexplained disappearance of some things and other oddities, and to say that happens in the center, then it would be said that that is typical of these nutcases. All things considered, were such tests carried out in other places, then that would excite the public attention, because the deployment of police as well as ghost hunters and parapsychologists would be unavoidable. So the center is very well suited for testing in the forms which you have mentioned, along with other similar situations that you have not named today, about which, however, you have already spoken several times with me.
The old song. But I do not think there is anything to change that. Well, there is something else. Guido came to see me on the first Sunday regarding a question about the so-called collapse of the Earth's magnetic poles. Especially the New Age believers and many other misguided humans are of the mistaken belief that the shifting of the poles is an event in which the Earth tips over, and the South Pole suddenly becomes the North Pole, and the South Pole becomes the South Pole. With this nonsense, people are driven crazy and just as much into fear and fright as with stupid theories of the end of the world, with the nonsense of the alleged photon belt, and with foreign planets, which are on course for the Earth, and are inhabited by humans who would rescue chosen ones from the Earth, etc. So I think it is probably time for us to say a few words about this, and I will also say what I gave Guido in response, who, by the way, had the right opinion. So I explained that a polar collapse is not to be understood in the sense that the Earth tips over, and the South Pole becomes the North Pole, and the South Pole becomes the South Pole. A collapse of the poles only means that the magnetic poles of the Earth are shifted, and therefore they move. At the moment, the magnetic North Pole is moving south, and of course the South Pole is moving north, whereas the current magnetic North Pole is on grassland, or Greenland. Until it is then in the south, it will still take a very long time, because in approximately 1,000 years, the Nordic magnetic pole will be in Saudi Arabia, where today Mecca is located. The whole thing is a phenomenon of the Earth's magnetism or geomagnetism, which is also related to the Sun because the further away the Earth is from the Sun, the weaker the earthly magnetic field becomes. The Earth's magnetism results from the physical properties of the Earth or its body, and the physical processes in it, which fluctuate and therefore cause changes. Thus, geomagnetism has the effect, among other things, that a movable magnetic needle, which has free space all around, takes a certain direction. Thus, a magnetic needle points to the North Magnetic Pole, which corresponds approximately to the geographic North Pole direction, which means that the magnetic and geographic North Pole are not the same. When the Earth is viewed, its physical behavior is that of a large magnet, with its two poles, the South Pole and the North Pole, changing their position over time. It is interesting to note that the North or Arctic or Boreal magnetic pole actually corresponds to the magnetic South Pole, which moves about 7.5 kilometers northwards each year. The Southern, Antarctic, or Australian magnetic pole is actually a magnetic North Pole, and currently moves about 10 kilometers per year in a northwestern direction. And if now these physical facts are considered, the result is the pole collapse, which is so idiotically interpreted by even bigger idiots as a tilting of the Earth.
Except for a purely scientific explanation, which is probably not necessary after what you have said. There would be nothing more to say about it because what you have said should be enough for those who are interested in what the collapse of the poles really is about. But now, Edward, it is time for me again because there are still some tasks waiting for me.
One more question, if you still have time for an answer.
I am not that much in a hurry.
Thank you. How are things going in Lebanon for the time being?
Israel is not adhering to the ceasefire decision, which also demands that the blockades that were established with regard to air, sea and land transport be lifted and prevent all traffic of goods and also passenger transport to and from abroad from becoming possible again. Even the intervention of the UN Secretary-General Kofi Annan remains unheeded. Israel does not care about the law or the UN decision and takes away all inhuman rights. It is perpetrating evil violence on Lebanon and therefore also on the Lebanese people and their government. And the immense destruction wrought in Lebanon by the Israeli army on behalf of the government, as well as the murder of innocent people in large numbers, is a crime that should, in principle, be punished by a world court.
You said that purely destructive action was taken to bring Lebanon to its knees, not just Hezbollah, but the state itself.
That is correct. And the main person responsible for all the atrocities, destruction, murders and oil spills on the Lebanese coast is the Israeli war and human rights criminal Prime Minister Olmert, who is far worse than Sharon, whose end has already been sealed.
Destructive criminals. Innumerable humans are murdered in a blood frenzy, and everything is destroyed by senseless wars and acts of terror. After which the world again begs for goods, money, and help to put the murdered under the ground, and to rebuild everything destroyed with billions of dollars. Only those criminals, by whom all destruction was caused and countless people were murdered, are not asked to pay and are not called to account. The question arises again and again, what has become of our beautiful world, which is ruled by murder and manslaughter and is made into an effective hell by destruction, by slimy, irresponsible and criminal creatures who call themselves presidents, their helpers and followers, as well as their henchmen, who smear their hands directly with human blood and, as military men, in brainwashed fashion, destroy and murder everything that comes before their weapons. The cruel tortures, rapes, thefts, etc. that take place in this process are beyond the bounds of calls of duty.
Unfortunately, a multinational peacekeeping force and all related issues are still a long way off on the Earth. But now, my friend, I really must go my way. Goodbye, which will not be very long in coming, because next time I will have something to tell you about some important and extraordinary predictions.
Obviously you know something, which you just do not want to say yet.
I do not want to talk about that yet, because I am still working on it.
Okay then, take care.